Hello, and you are very welcome back to the Public Eye Business Podcast, brought to you by Granite Exchange. I'm your host, Sarah Travers, and throughout the series I'm speaking with local entrepreneurs and business owners to learn more about how their companies have come to be, to gain insight into their growth and find out how they continue to innovate. So wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to keep an eye out for all new episodes and subscribe to stay up to date. Well, today joining me in the studio is John McEvoy, Executive Chairman and co-owner of Duality Healthcare. How are you doing, John?
Good, Sarah. Nice to be on for the podcast. First podcast that I've done, so.
Well, hopefully we'll make it easy for you. And it's lovely to have you in the studio today. We're talking all about healthcare today and the future of healthcare, perhaps. Now, John, and a bit of background into John McEvoy, is a qualified lawyer in the US, England, Wales and Ireland with experience in corporate M&A, technology, media and telecoms. Also in life sciences and commercial contracts. And John has worked in private practice for a number of years before he moved full-time into the life science and medical field. Now, John has also got significant board and executive management experience and is Ireland's current Life Sciences Lawyer of the Year. He was also recognised as one of the most influential and innovative general counsels in the Global Legal 500 GC Paralist in 2022 and 2023. With significant experience in the life sciences and healthcare industry, John is a trusted expert in his field. And in this episode, we'll be discussing the importance of access to quality healthcare services in Northern Ireland, the challenges faced by healthcare providers, and how Duality Healthcare Primary Care Services is working to bridge the gap in current healthcare services across Northern Ireland. Tell us about Duality Healthcare.
So Duality Healthcare is now certainly the fastest growing private primary care provider in Northern Ireland, and I think it's probably the largest primary care provider in Northern Ireland. It was started actually by my partner in business, Declan Morgan. So Declan set up the company in 2017 with his wife, and then I came on board last year. I bought into the company and we had a long conversation just about sort of the primary care provision in Northern Ireland and how Duality Healthcare can actually certainly start to address the gaps in service that exist at the minute, and ultimately try and drive growth across Northern Ireland and provide access to people who really need it across Northern Ireland, not just in sort of the big cities like Derry or Belfast. So that was sort of the nexus of it. It was created by Declan. And the whole mantra of Duality Healthcare is affordability and accessibility. That's very much close to our hearts. We're two local guys who ultimately have a desire to make sure that everyone in Northern Ireland have access to services and healthcare services that they really need, that they can't actually get access to at the minute.
I mean, it's a very worthy purpose. There is no doubt that the current healthcare system is very broken, and there's nothing more frustrating than needing a GP appointment at the minute and not being able to get one. However, with every problem in society, there's a business opportunity. How do you square that all away to make sure that you keep the focus on the people and the patients and their needs and not making it about the money?
So the prices that we set, we've launched a virtual care service recently. You can access a virtual GP from £39. That's province-wide. So if you're sitting in Portstewart, Portadown, wherever it may be, you can access it. Log onto your laptop, log onto your phone.
So
you can
useful.
see a GP. Yeah. So access straight away. Not we'll call you back and try and get you an appointment next week. You can access it straight away on the day if you need it. In terms of face-to-face clinics, as I said, we've got three. We've got Newry, Ballymena and Omagh. We will be opening soon in South Armagh, Belfast and Derry, and that'll be very much the 2024 sort of roadmap for growth and expansion. Coming back to the sort of point of pricing and affordability, we believe our prices are incredibly reasonable. We as I said, we're two local guys. We set it at a rate that we think people can afford. If you want a virtual GP, as I said, it's £39 or starts from £39, and then if you're coming in off the street, you can get a GP appointment for £75. Now that is immediate access, on the day, same day urgent care as well. if you want to become a member, or if there's corporate members out there, that again becomes a lot cheaper. So, the whole mantra of Duality, the nexus in the name, is affordability and accessibility, and we want to make it affordable for everyone in society. We could charge a lot higher prices. We choose not to do that because, why marginalise yourself in society when you can ultimately be there and provide services to a broad range of people across the province. And that is ultimately what we're trying to do here. We're trying to put in place a service that people will use regularly, that people can afford to use, and that, a service that people ultimately need. And we've got the provision to provide those services. We've got GPs, nurses, medical clinicians ready and waiting to provide these services to people who need them. And that is what we're here for, and that's what we're trying to build, and trying to build a brand and trying to build a presence across Northern Ireland.
You're a lawyer by trade, though. Did you ever think you would find yourself in this line of work?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I've always sort of been intrigued in business. I've always liked the idea of business, or sort of owning a company or starting up a company. And when the opportunity arose to get in and work with Declan,
and he is a doctor.
He's the doctor, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Declan's the CEO of the company, and myself and him sort of work in tandem very, very well in terms of sort of my skills in business and legals, and Declan's skills also in business and the clinical side of it. We've got a very good sort of relationship there in terms of what we see and sort of how we address the issues that we see coming across our desk. So in terms of getting into it, we had a long conversation last year. I met Declan actually when I was going in for a medical. Actually, I would just shoot the breeze and had a conversation just about sort of what I've done in business before and sort of what I want to do in the future. And we sort of had a conversation just about Duality healthcare in general, and ultimately the opportunity that arose for Duality and the ability to provide those services across Northern Ireland, and how do you actually do that, and how do you get to that level. So there was a lot of interesting conversations about how that could be done, and ultimately I decided at that point that if I went in as a co-owner of the business with Declan, that I think with my skills and his skills, there's a huge opportunity to actually build a brand, build a business that people will use and that people will get benefit from, and that hopefully ultimately will be a success, both in the ordinary guy in the street, or from corporate perspective as well, whether businesses buy into the corporate plans that we've got out there. There's a huge opportunity there for people to do to use us and ultimately alleviate pressures, I think, in the NHS that are currently exist. And I think if people actually use our services, it'll help in an enormous fashion to alleviate the pressures that do exist, unfortunately, in the NHS.
What do you think about the state of the NHS at the minute?
Listen, it's not in a good way. I mean, it's I think Robin Swan himself came out a few weeks ago and said, it's in really bad shape. And it's the world that we live in. It is unfortunately in a bad shape, and it's not just in Northern Ireland. It's all across the UK. The NHS is in bad shape, and I think it's chronically underfunded. There's huge gaps in services there. The demand, unfortunately, on clinicians across the NHS is really, really huge. So much so that it impacts a lot of their personal lives and the demand it's putting on them. And I have so much sympathy for the guys that are doing it. Especially during COVID. I mean, everyone everyone knew during COVID how vital the NHS and how vital medical provision is for people, yeah. And we
all applauded them
exactly,
every night.
Everyone applauded them every night, but then that seems to have sort of fallen off a bit, and it's been forgotten about, I think. But these people are incredibly important in society, and
a lot of broken people that work in the health service too, from maybe what they've experienced. Absolutely. And okay, just to play devil's advocate here, some would say that private practice such as yours, you're stealing GPs and nurses from the NHS, and that's one of the reasons it's broken. What would you say to that?
And completely, that's a position that you hear regularly about, private practice and private medical care, and I think there's sort of a veil that needs to be lifted in terms of that. We in no way, shape or form steal GPs or clinicians of any shape or form, whether that be nurses or ANPs from the NHS. So we're fully privately funded. We're a private organisation. GPs and clinicians come to us, and we think about it normally. A GP provisions 9 to 5, 9 to 4, whatever it is, Monday to Friday. We open in the evenings and weekends as well. So GPs want to come and work with us in the evenings, want to come and work with us the weekends. Most GPs don't work 5-day weeks; they'll work 4-day weeks. On the day off, they'll come and work for us. So we don't in any way, shape or form affect sort of services that are being provided by GPs through the NHS. They do it in their spare time, their days off, whatever it might be, they come and work for us.
And they want to come and work for you.
They want to come and work with us because honestly, and I'm not making this up, it's the feedback we're getting from them. It's a break. It's a nice break. It's actually nice to get back to practicing medicine the way it should be.
Yeah.
Spending time with patients. I mean, all our patients get a minimum of 15 minutes with the GP if they come in for an appointment. They get to spend the time in a nice environment, and they're given the time without the pressures of having to, roll through tons and tons of patients a day and just get them in and out the door. There's time, they're sat and listened to and understood what the problems are. And, it's the ability to practice medicine, and as a non-clinician, obviously, this is what I'm hearing, it's the ability to actually practice medicine the way it was previously and given the time to actually do what they love to do.
Do you believe in the NHS? Do you believe the two can sit side by side, or do you think we're moving to a fully private healthcare system?
I absolutely think they can sit side by side. I think there's a huge opportunity, actually, whereby we can work together. We can alleviate so much pressure on the NHS by people coming and using our services, by companies actually putting in place corporate packages for their employees so the employees can get access to us.
Has that become the norm now?
Unfortunately, in Northern Ireland, it hasn't become the norm. Actually, it's become the norm sort of everywhere else. Certainly, where I've worked, even mainland UK, there's a lot of sort of corporate health packages in place. Certainly in the Republic of Ireland, and obviously across the majority of the rest of the Western world have these things in place for their employees to avail of medical services. Northern Ireland seems to be lagging behind significantly. I spoke to a broker recently, and honestly, it stunned me when he said it was about approximately 80% of companies don't have coverage from a healthcare perspective for their staff in Northern Ireland.
80%?
That's an enormous number. That's the figure that was given to me. Now, if that is the case, that there's a huge gap there that should be plugged, in my view, where people are given access, or given coverage certainly, to access GP and primary care services. And this is where Duality Healthcare really can step up and provide those services, because we have a corporate program in place that a number of companies have come to us and signed up for, and that's grown more and more as the weeks go on. We've recently signed a partnership with Spectrum Life, who are Ireland's largest mental health care provider, and one of, if not the largest in the UK. So that's going to be exclusive to Duality Healthcare in Northern Ireland as well. So people are going to get access to mental health services, which again are chronically underfunded from a public perspective.
And absolutely.
It's a major issue, as well. Everyone knows in society now, mental health, it's getting a much larger focus, which is brilliant. And I think the ability for people to access those services without again having to wait or get held back when they really need to speak to someone, I think that's going to be a huge game changer.
And what will that partnership actually look like then? How will it operate? So
it's an exclusive partnership. If you're a member of Duality Healthcare, you will have immediate access to, that will be baked into your membership. So you'll have immediate 24/7 mental health support through Spectrum Life. They also offer autism assessments, ADHD assessments.
Gosh, that's a big issue too, getting your child's statemented or assessed.
Huge issue, huge waiting lists for that to happen. Whereas, if you come through Duality, you don't even have to be a member of that. You can just come through Duality and or use Spectrum directly and get those assessments undertaken rapidly, with little waiting time compared to sort of what the waiting lists are currently, unfortunately. So, again, the opportunities there, the availabilities there to assess people and help people in society to get these things that they really need. Now, will they have to pay for certain aspects of it? Yes, they will, because it's not public funded. But at the end of the day, it is a business. People have to it's people's careers. They have to get paid to ultimately provide these services. But the costs that are being charged, we stand over them, that are very reasonable. They are affordable. They are accessible, and that's the whole point of it. It's that everyone in society can afford it. If you can afford a bottle of wine at the weekend, you can afford these services. If you're our memberships from a clinical perspective start at $6.99 for an individual or $14.99 for a family. Now, if you can afford a bottle of wine at the weekend, you can afford that membership, and that's the whole point. That's the reason we've set that price target at, because it's something
it's affordable.
It's affordable, absolutely, yeah.
And you've got that peace of mind of being able to get your child seen when you need them, instead of needing to know that you're going to be sick in advance. Correct.
But this is it. I mean, and this is the problem actually. A lot of people aren't coming to the doctor when they're sick.
Yeah.
A lot of them are sitting at home and suffering, and can I be bothered dealing with having to wait on the telephone or get ring back, and
things are being missed.
Correct. But this is what's leading to. It's leading to more serious issues that that it builds up, and people aren't getting seen when they need to, or they're not going to the doctor to get things checked out because of the waiting times, and and everything that goes along with it, and it's building up to something that is obviously can become more serious.
So if I had a concern and I paid for the consultation, what happens after that? Do I get referred on into the NHS system, or do I continue with your doctors?
You can do both. So hopefully you won't have to get referred.
No,
hopefully 90% of the things you can get your prescription the same day and off you go, and everything's fine. If there is, unfortunately there obviously are people who are in a position that there will be problems and they will need referrals. That'll be up to the patient. We can refer them into the NHS, or we can refer them privately. We can refer them into the NHS, and you can go on the waiting lists, or you can get referred privately and get dealt with at a much quicker pace. But you'll obviously pay then for that service. Now, whether people have health insurance to cover those costs, that's a different matter, but it's ultimately up to the patient. So
you've grown hugely as a business. Where did you start? Where was the first one?
First one was in Newry. It was Declan and his wife Chantal. It was actually the first private GP service in Northern Ireland, and it was right on Monaghan Street in Newry. And it was set up in 2017, and Declan and Chantal grew the business until COVID hit, unfortunately. And I think when COVID hit, everything took a setback, everything sort of locked down, and then sort of when COVID sort of everyone re-emerged from COVID, the clinic again took off. And I think it was the conversation I had with Declan towards sort of the start of last year, about the opportunity for providing these services province-wide, not just in Newry, because I think Newry people, a lot of them use the service. A lot of them, everyone I speak to tells me, gives me positive feedback. Now, whether they're just being nice to me, I'm not sure, but they really do. I genuinely believe they really like the service, they appreciate the service, and a huge amount of people from Newry use the service. And we wanted to basically mimic that across other areas of Northern Ireland where there's huge unmet need, especially, as I said, we opened the clinic in Omagh. There's a huge unmet need out in the west, unfortunately. Ballymena, north of Belfast as well, and hopefully, as I said, the other clinics will be open in Belfast, Derry and South Armagh in a short while. Will continue to facilitate that need. And it's up to people as well. If they want to use us, they want to use us. If they don't, they don't. That's their prerogative. But
it's their choice.
But it's their choice. But at least the provisions there should they need it.
What's the biggest challenge for you as an entrepreneur and growing this business?
Time in the day. It's, yes, it really is. It's from the littlest things to the biggest things, you have to deal with them all. Unfortunately, it's right down to sort of the nitty gritty in the clinics, right up to sort of corporate deals and stuff that you're doing. It's the whole array that you have to obviously put up with and get through as an entrepreneur. Now, is it a good problem to have? Absolutely, it's something that I love doing, so I'm not going to complain about it at all. But it does keep me busy. It absolutely does. But busy's good. If you weren't busy, there would be an issue, I think.
And what do you love about the job?
I love the variety of it. I love the ability to do deals. Ultimately, I love the ability to see clinics opening, and I love the feedback. Actually, mostly, I love the feedback from people who are coming and saying, you know what, that was brilliant. I really needed. I get seen to a doctor. I got seen to this morning, which is unheard of. I've been told to come back tomorrow if it was my local GP or whatever it is. So actually, the ability for people to get what they want when they want, and the positive feedback that comes back from that's what the real sort of good part about it is. It's people using it and getting satisfaction from it.
I suppose it's just people need to adjust their mindset, because also if you look at the benefits of the pressure that you're taking off the healthcare system, so many people are sitting in A&E when they've got a sore throat at the weekend, which is the last place they should be, and sitting there for 24 hours.
It's, as I said, it's sort of there can be negative connotations, and there are negative connotations with sort of private healthcare providers, but I think the public need to realise that the healthcare system in Northern Ireland really isn't in a good state, and the fact that we don't interfere with the NHS in terms of taking staff and anything, we obviously don't poach staff from the NHS, but there's a service there that's able to address the concerns that people have. It's able to alleviate the pressures on the NHS system. People shouldn't be going to A&E for sore throats and these issues that they should be going to the GP. But the fact of the matter is, some urgent care services might be completely overwhelmed as well. GPs obviously don't work in the evenings and on the weekends through their clinics, so there's a gap there that we can obviously fulfill. And just more generally, if people need annual medicals, for example, come to us. We can do medicals, we can do ultrasounds, we can do echocardiogram scans, we can do pretty much, well, not pretty much, an NHS equivalent is what we are. We can provide primary care services as good as any NHS clinic can do, with added services on top of that. So, it's the service is there. People should just use it, and the more they use it, the more pressure it'll alleviate on the public system.
Now, technology is transforming many aspects of healthcare. You've already talked about the virtual clinics, from telemedicine to data analytics. Are you using technology, and where do you see the future?
We do. We've got a real top grade IT system in place as well from a clinical perspective. So all our clinics are linked in across the province. So if you walk into the Oma clinic, you'll get seen as much as you were in Newry. They're all sort of on the same system. From a virtual perspective as well, as I said, we've rolled out virtual GP recently. That is looking like a huge success, because people can access it literally from their laptop or mobile or whatever it might be on the go. Or in pharmacies, for example, if people are going into pharmacies, I can't see my doctor, they can get their phone, log on to Duality Healthcare and get a virtual appointment if they need it there and then. So there's that aspect of it as well. And then there's the sort of more general, just general development of IT, pathology services, for example, the fantastic service the Kasich Randocs provide, and the real detail that they come back with pathology results is, genetic testing is all, top quality information that patients, historically probably wouldn't have got, and it's able to detect certain things that they mightn't have been detecting previously.
Are more and more people signing up? Do they want to know maybe what's ahead? Maybe they've looked at their parents, or the history of certain diseases or illnesses in the families.
I think actually certainly the younger generation are so much more health conscious than maybe their parents were. So certainly sort of from 26, 27 upwards to late 40s, early 50s, they're very, very health conscious is what we find, and that's certainly a huge amount of the client base that come and see us. And I think that's the way it's going. I think it's important for people to take charge of their health. It's important for people to realise that it's okay to go see a doctor. If you don't feel well, ask a question, go in and see a doctor. I mean, just get it checked out to see if there's anything more sinister there. For the sake of a few pound, what's better? Check out your health to make sure there's nothing wrong with you for peace of mind, or sitting sort of languishing. Is there not something wrong with me? I think people do need to take charge of their health a lot more than probably historically they've done, and I think they are. I think that generation, certainly my generation,
it's preventative.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's trying to identify things before they become more sinister.
It used to be that it was men that didn't like to go to get checked out. Has that changed, do you think?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's it's the same with the mental health side of it as well. It was very sort of a taboo for people to not talk about their mental health or talk. That's all changing, and I think it's changing through open conversations and things like this, podcasts and the media sort of addressing it and discussing it. I think that's shining a light on aspects of healthcare that maybe weren't as prevalent, or maybe sort of taboo to talk about. And I think the more people talk about it, and the more people, it's okay to go to a GP, it's okay to get something checked out. Get a medical every year. People should be getting a medical every year to ultimately see if everything's okay. And it's something like I'm 36 now. I get a medical every year just to see if there's anything untoward there. The checks, if I'm feeling unwell, what's the reason behind that? Mm-hmm. Is it a lack of something? Should I be improving my lifestyle in different ways? And and that's okay. But it's going down pathways like that can identify more sinister things hopefully down the line that can then be prevented.
The fact that you've begun this great partnership now with Spectrum Life, were you seeing an increase in the number of people coming for mental health problems to the practice? Did you feel that you weren't perhaps delivering in that area?
I mean, as a non-clinician, I can't hugely comment on that, but from what I'm hearing through clinicians, I think the demand is there, and I think, as I said, the more it was put into the public domain about it's okay to actually talk about your mental health, and people should be aware of their mental health, that people then do come forward and actually talk about it more. So then there is obviously an increase in in those discussions and sort of that footfall through the GP to identify those issues. And I think with the partnership with Spectrum, the ability to then get access to mental health support, which is currently it certainly could be better, certainly in Northern Ireland, and I think the ability to do that and have access to that on a 24/7 basis is just going to be a game changer.
Where do you think private healthcare will be in the next 5 years, and do you think we'll move away from it being a dirty word?
I hope so. I really do, because there's no reason that it should be a dirty word in my view. Ultimately, I think, unfortunately, listen, I think if the NHS was a business, it'd be in very bad shape economically, and that's just the nature of it. Nobody can turn away from that. Nobody can hide the fact that that is a reality, that we sit here today and realise that it's not in good shape. Does that improve? I don't know. That's up to the politicians. It's up to the funding that's put into the NHS. But we might be too far along the lane.
Which is the taxpayers' money.
Well, exactly, yeah. But we might be too far along the lane for it to improve. I always look at dental care. I wouldn't dream of not paying for dental care now. Whereas at a time, in the past, you wouldn't have paid for it. Yeah. And it's that mindset of people, I think, to realise, is the NHS going to continue in the same vein for the next 100 years? I just can't see how it happens. I know money doesn't grow on trees as well. People are living longer. There's bigger populations. People, unfortunately, are catching more and more disease. And I just think there has to be, at some point in time, there will be a move to a private model in some description. Whether that's a tiered process, whether it's done through economic means of families or whatever how it's judged, I just can't see the current NHS system functioning the way it does for the foreseeable future. I don't know how that model continues.
We have the executive up and running again now. We have the health ministry. You've already talked about Robin Swan today, and the health committee. Will you be engaging fully with the MLAs?
I really hope to do so. Yeah, because I think it's important we talk. I think ignoring the problem doesn't solve the problem. There's a solution. Certainly, in our view, there's a solution there where private providers such as Duality can work alongside the public bodies. And I think the only way that it's ever going to sort of come out in the wash is discussions. Things only get solved through discussions and through conversations. And I think I'd love to have conversations with MLAs and the politicians up on the hill in Stormont to actually figure out how do we move forward and actually what is the answer and how do we put that into practice, and what does it look like? Have those conversations, because otherwise I just don't see. I honestly can't sit in here today and see how it can continue in the same vein.
But public-private partnership?
Maybe, absolutely. And for private providers such as yourselves to take things off the desk of NHS providers, that things that they can't do, like if they need to be providing medicals, for example, like we can do medicals. It should be, the NHS should be there for people that really need it, I think. And if there's a provision there for people to use who can afford it, which our prices, I think they can, but the fact that it's accessible, you can come and see us on the same day. You can see us in the evenings through urgent care or at the weekends. Like the availability is there, the accessibility is there. So I think if people actually just naturally, put their hand in their own pocket and actually come and see it. Now, I know there's sort of like, I pay my taxes and everything, so I shouldn't have to do that. And I do get that argument. I fully get it. But there are people who, if they do come and use people like or primary care services like Duality Healthcare, then that will inevitably alleviate pressures on the NHS. That is a given.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I hope I'm not coming across too negative in this podcast.
No, not at all. It's good questions.
I suppose as the former journalist, I'm also,
Absolutely.
Just holding people to account. But I don't want you to feel like you have to defend your business. The need is there. You've provided a solution. So, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud about what we're doing for people. I mean, you said anything you said, sir, is not negative. These are the questions that need to be asked. These are the questions that people, I want people to ask. I want people to understand sort of the mentality of why would you open a private practice, or, why are you focusing on private primary healthcare? Because the service is there for people to use. They don't have to use it, but it's there for them to use at an affordable price. It's accessible. People can afford it. They should use it. If they've got any concerns, if they can't get access to the NHS, try and help the NHS out, alleviate the pressures. Come and use us if you feel like there's a need to. Now, what the proudest aspect of sort of Duality and the entrepreneurship aspect about it is, it's actually seeing the company grow. It's seeing, when we're opening clinics in these locations, it's actually the feedback on the street. We went out actually recently when we opened the Oma clinic, walked around shops, walked around pharmacies, handed out leaflets and said to guys, this is opening in your vicinity, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Genuine. It was genuine. It wasn't sort of, thanks very much. I'll put that down and forget about it. It was, and when he's open and what he's doing, and that's fantastic. And it really, I'll use it. Real solid and real good feedback from I'd say the vast majority, if not everyone we were speaking to. That's the most enjoyable aspect. It was actually seeing what you're doing and the investment you're actually making into these towns and cities is that you're going to be helping people, and they're going to get the service and going to get the access that they need, and ultimately, it works for us, it works for them, and seeing that sort of play out is certainly the most satisfying part of it.
Do you see the business growing beyond these shores?
Yeah, we do. We've as I said, we've got a full sort of plan in our head, sort of a 5-year plan in terms of how we envisage duality healthcare. I think the focus, as I said, is certainly Northern Ireland. I think there's a huge need in Northern Ireland, and that's what the focus is certainly for the next certainly 18 to 24 months. At that point in time, we reevaluate. We certainly have got plans and aspirations to potentially operate in the Republic of Ireland and obviously mainland UK. We'd love to do that, but it ultimately depends again on the success of the company. And I think the most important thing for us is to forget about that for the time being, because our concentration is on Northern Ireland. It's trying to get the clinics, the virtual services operational to a point in Northern Ireland where everybody can use it, can afford to use it, and it's a service that people ultimately recognise and appreciate. And I think once you've reached that level, you can take a step back and sort of figure out sort of what the next step is. But there's no point in taking your eye off the ball and looking at other sort of geographic locations without focusing on sort of the bread and butter, which is Northern Ireland. That's ultimately what we're focusing on at the minute.
Let's find out a little bit about the man behind the business after the grilling has taken place. What do you like to do in your spare time?
When I have spare time, I'm a big football fan. I'm a Manchester United supporter, so for anyone who listens, they'll either laugh or cry out with me. So yeah, big football fan. Love my GAA. I'm a big golf fan. I try to play golf badly, but I try to get out as often as I can, which is not that very often at the minute.
And you're a family man too? I
am, yeah. I've got a wee girl and a lovely wife at home, so married 2 years, so yeah, everything's going well. With my wee daughter as well, it's just brilliant. So it's just sort of, again, when you come home at night, it sort of puts everything into perspective as well. It's sort of looking at, like, sorry, she's only 20 months old, so coming home and sort of looking at that perspective and seeing that generation and saying, you know what, that is the next generation, and like stuff has to change for these guys. It can't continue the way it is, and I like to think my generation and everyone above me will try and actually, fix a lot of the problems actually for these guys to be growing up into a place and into a world that they can get what they need and ultimately be looked after the way they should.
And did you feel that your perspective and your view of the world changed when you became a dad?
Oh my God, totally.
Apart from the sleepless nights.
Well, actually, the sleepless nights, I have to give credit to my wife, because there's this whole sleepless nights and real difficult. All credit sits with my wife, because she's the one that looked after her in the middle
cool,
of
us women.
No, absolutely. Come here, like I have a total new respect as well for women. Like, I mean, God, like the she's put in some serious work with my daughter and just the ability to sort of free up time so I can actually go off and do what I'm doing as well from a business perspective, which is which again probably women don't get a lot of credit for, and I think motherhood and everything else that comes with you deserve so much credit. You really do, because you ultimately facilitate hopefully, I think if people listen, I think a lot of the men in the family do go out and do what they need to do in terms of work, and women.
So it's quite a traditional setup.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and as I said, juggling it does work for me. Juggling a job and and motherhood and everything else. It's a huge pressure trying to grow a business as well. So it's sort of
teamwork, isn't it?
It is teamwork.
That makes the dream work.
It has to be teamwork. It wouldn't work if it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And what kind of father do you think you are?
I think I'm a good one. I think I love I get up every Saturday morning, as I said to my wife, the weekend sort of chill out and then I'll look after my daughter. So myself and her go off every Saturday morning. We go for a wee tea and coffee. not that she loves her sausages and chips. She's oh God, she's just absolutely obsessed. So we go off every morning, go to the playground and come back, and so that's sort of my time with her as well. And I like to spend time, because during the week it's really difficult. If I'm away at meetings or I'm at, I'm in the office or wherever I am, it's really difficult to sort of spend time during the day, obviously with her. And that'll be for, obviously everyone that's probably listening. It's really difficult to spend time with the child during the day. In the evening they're going to bed very early, so it's trying to make time at the weekends to actually spend time and connect with her, and really that's what I try to do, and certainly on a Saturday and Sunday as best as I can.
Life changes, doesn't it?
Oh God, forget about going out to nightclubs and everything else. Those days are long gone. But
for the better.
Come here, I wouldn't change it. Not for the world. Yeah.
Well, look, what's next then for Duality Healthcare, apart from these exciting partnerships? What's next on the agenda that you can reveal?
Yeah, I think so. Spectrum's obviously a partnership that's been announced. We're in discussions with a few partners at the minute that hopefully could again really change the landscape of healthcare in Northern Ireland. That's certainly what the aim is, and hopefully if these get across the line, they'll be announced in due course. And I think just generally, just growth of the business. I think we're already looking at areas that are hugely under supported across Northern Ireland that don't have GP access. Or if their GPs hand back their contracts,
which is happening
regularly
every week.
So we're looking at areas of sort of need, and whether we put a clinic in there, on a full-time basis, wherever it may be. But expect outside of the sort of 6-7 key areas that the roadmap for 2024 is already put in place. I think look out for sort of a clinic near you soon, because I think that's sort of the direction that we're going, and that's the direction that we want to be going, to be able to put clinics in places that really need the services that we provide. Changing
times, challenging times, but here's a solution. Duality Health is providing it. Look out for one close to you on your doorstep. Final question, John, and I ask this of everyone. So the purpose of this podcast is to inspire existing business owners and those ambitious entrepreneurs out there to grow their business by offering an insight into the success of businesses such as Duality Health. So then, what advice would you give people who may have a business idea but have no idea where to begin, or are unsure as to whether the risk is worth taking?
You'll only ever find out if the risk's worth taking if you take the risk, right? So I think, if people, are thinking about doing something, if they're thinking of going into business, whether that is, really jumping into it themselves full time, just go for it. I mean, the worst that can happen is it doesn't work, right? That is the worst that can happen. If it doesn't work, whatever you were doing beforehand, I'm sure there's an opportunity to go back and do that. But the only way you're ever going to find it is if you actually take the jump and take the leap and do it. Certainly that's, and I deal with entrepreneurs regularly, and there's a trend amongst all of them is that's how they started out. They've just taken the risk. Now, they've come up with a business plan, obviously, that works and that they've thought about, and they've really sort of tried to figure out what the issues and problems may be down the line. But if you put in the work and you put in the thought process and you're passionate about what you're doing, you have to have passion, because if you're not prepared to put in the time and really invest the hours, because it is going to take a lot of time, it will take a lot of effort, but that's all short-term stuff. If you do that, take the risk and actually go for it, who knows, it could be a success, but you're only ever going to find out if you do it.
That's it. Great advice there. Thank you so much to John McEvoy, Executive Chairman and co-owner of Duality Healthcare, on his first podcast.
Thanks,
but I'm sure it won't be your last. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio today. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service, where our team using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.